Thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Marielle Yard and I'm a director with KPMG Lower Gulf based in Dubai. I welcome you all today to join us in this very interesting session. It's one of a series of public-private connect workshops led by the Foreign Investment Department of Dubai in partnership with KPMG Lower Gulf to outline the benefits and requirements of the newly introduced foreign direct investment law in the UAE. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box. We will get back to everyone by email. Following the webinar, we will also be sharing a recording with you, including all the contact details of our presenters today, as well as a link to a short survey, and we would appreciate your feedback and participation in the survey. Now, without any further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Fahad Al Thani, Director of Investment Support at the FDI in Dubai. Mr. Fahad, over to you.
Thank you, Marielle. Good morning, everyone. My name is Fahad Al Thani, and I'm Director of Investment Support at Dubai Investment Development Agency, Dubai FDI. I want to welcome you all to our webinar. We're delighted to have you with us in exceptional times for Dubai. We're days away from the world's greatest show, Expo 2020, where the world will showcase innovative ideas themed under mobility, sustainability, and opportunity. I urge you to discover the opportunities by visiting Expo 2020 website, and we look forward to seeing many of you physically on site starting next week. Dubai today is readier than ever. We are prepared to support the setup of e-commerce and innovation-driven companies, facilitate their growth and expansion in the city and beyond. We have an inspiring agenda for today. But before we start, I would like to welcome our partners, 0100 Ventures, in collaboration with Campus Cowork, and their guests to this session. Also, we're grateful to have speakers from the Dubai Future Foundation, Swivel, KPMG, and our own business registration and licensing. Swivel, a transformative mass transit and shared mobility solutions, is with us today. I'm excited to learn about their experience on how Dubai helped expedite their growth worldwide. I would also like to thank Dubai Future Foundation team for accelerating business opportunities and supporting entrepreneurship in Dubai. Our business registration and licensing colleagues will show us the evolving ease of doing business through the platform of investindubai.ae. And last but not least, our partners at KPMG moderating through the sessions and giving us their expert tax perspective on the recent developments in their scheduled session. If you have any questions specific to your business or need any further support, do not hesitate to post questions in the Q&A tab or contact us directly on fdi.support@fdidubai.gov.ae, and we will get back to you shortly. I hope you find today's webinar valuable and informative, and I look forward to hearing your feedback through the survey that will be shared with you by email after the session. Thank you all for joining us, and I wish you a great day. Marielle?
Thank you very much, Mr. Fahad. Thank you very much. I would like to now welcome Mr. Ghaith Rahman. He's a Senior Project Manager with Dubai Future Foundation, to give us a brief overview of DFF's scope and experience so far in working and supporting international startups in the UAE in collaboration with the FDI. Mr. Ghaith, over to you, please. You are on mute.
Oh.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. First of all, I want to thank the FDI team and KPMG for hosting us. It's always a pleasure to be part of these sessions, especially that a lot of what DFF does is outward looking and interacting a lot with innovative startups from around the world and solving problems here on the ground in Dubai. So a bit of context about myself. I run the government and private sector startup programs here at Dubai Future Foundation in the ecosystem called Area 2071, which is a collection of government and private sector innovation labs that are focused on new technologies and emerging technologies, but also new business models that are underpinning these new technologies. So obviously buzzwords like blockchain, AI, machine learning, robotics are all things that are, that are popping everywhere. A lot of people are building new business models and new entire businesses based on them. And our job is to basically understand where do our government and private sector partners want to be in the next 5 years. How do they want to venture outside of their sector, outside of their current business models and services and products that they develop, and who can we connect them with from regional and global startups that can help them do that. So this is the ultimate goal of the ecosystem. So if I can start the presentation to give you a bit more context about how DFF started and why DFF started, and then I'll get into more of the details around what we do on a day-to-day basis. Marielle, can we start the presentation from your end?
Sure.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so a lot of people ask us, what does Dubai Future Foundation do? How was it incepted? What is the purpose of Dubai Future Foundation? And we actually started off as a small exhibition in the World Government Summit as a chance to basically show what is the future of government and what is the future of a lot of sectors, like what is the future of FMCG, transportation, logistics. And we started off as that exhibition, and His Highness Muhammad was very fond of the experience, and he actually asked us to institutionalize the process of future foresight and future thinking and instill it within government. Essentially, that is the purpose of Dubai Future Foundation. It's the manifestation of His Highness's vision to institutionalize future shaping. And ultimately, what we try to do is to make Dubai a leading city of the future. And we have a few areas where we can, where the mission is deeply rooted, which is to collectively imagine, inspire, and design Dubai's future. And we do this not just as a government entity, but we do this with private sector as well, and a much more expansive set of stakeholders. And if you look at the things that we do, our primary tasks are imagine, design, and execute. And the imagine side, everything from research and foresight to the dissemination of that foresight, as well as on the design phase. This is where we take a lot of that input in and put it onto the ground. We work with our colleagues at the Academy. We work with the Dubai Future Labs, which is basically a massive robotics lab that you'll find in Emirates Towers. And this is where I work, Dubai Future Accelerators, where we design a lot of the startup programs and a lot of other areas as well, in which we take a lot of that future foresight and we try to imprint it on the ground. And obviously, our biggest physical asset is the Museum of the Future, which is that lovely oval building that you'll see on Sheikh Zayed Road, which is also opening up pretty soon. And on the execution side, obviously, we are working very closely with Dubai government on a lot of the private sector partners that we have. Onto basically the next few slides, will just take you through what specifically we try to do at the Dubai Future Accelerators, which is turn Dubai into a big open lab for the future, business ideas, future technologies. And obviously we do that, like I said, within an ecosystem that's highly collaborative. It has representation from private sector, government, and the startup ecosystem, which is Area 2071. And to help all of that come to fruition, we obviously do a lot of support functions, right? If we are to achieve that mission and vision, which is basically the Dubai Future Accelerators is the flagship program where what we do is we work with our private and government partners to identify challenges that are affecting not just their organizations, but their sectors. Once we identify these challenges, we link them with startups from around the world to help them achieve that mission. And we've done 7 cohorts now. We're finishing our 8th. We have 60 pilot projects on the ground The companies come from around 30 plus countries, and we've had over 250 companies that are participating from around the world. So that is our flagship program. And obviously, these are some of the examples that we've had with our partners from Smart Dubai, DIWA, and Emirates Airlines. So these are all the companies that have been shortlisted in the past few cohorts. These are just a sample of the success stories that we've had. And basically, this is where we, these are some of the shining examples that we showcase. We have a lot of them actually in our impact report that we have online. You'll see a lot of them. You see a lot of the government services that are on the ground that have been piloted in collaboration with us. And we do that obviously because we do a lot of support functions as well. The regulations lab is a massive piece that we work with to allow regulations in the UAE to become a lot more, let's say, flexible, a lot more anticipatory of changes in technology and changes of business models that require the regulations to be a lot more agile. And on the other side, we are part of a much bigger effort in Dubai called the Dubai Future District, which includes Dubai Future Foundation and the Emirates Towers District, the IFC, and Dubai World Trade Center. And this entire zone is basically dedicated to provide services for innovation-driven enterprises or innovative startups to basically be set in Dubai, find business in Dubai, and to scale their business regionally from Dubai. So this is a quick snapshot of some of the offerings that we provide within the district, and obviously Dubai Future Foundation is part of that. These are some of the quick benefits that we give. We give you access to, we give access to the founders of the startups to a 5-year entrepreneurship visa, easy access to licensing, obviously through the help of our friends at the Dubai FDI. And of course, the biggest one is the access to programs and challenges that we have, because these are the tangible commercial opportunities that we give these startups to be not just to find one opportunity, but to find several opportunities in Dubai and to be based out of Dubai, including, of course, a few other benefits as listed below. That's it from my end. Again, glad to be here. Happy to answer any questions towards the end, and excited to see what my other panelists have to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ghaith Rahman, for this very, very interesting presentation. It's great to hear about the excellent work that the Dubai Future Foundation is doing, and we wish you and the team continuous success. We will be sharing the list of the questions that we are receiving from our audience at the end, and hopefully we will reply to each and every single one of them by email. Thank you very much again, Mr. Ghaith, for participating. We move now on to hear from Mr. Yusuf Salim, who is the Chief Financial Officer of Swivel, about the success story that Swivel has had so far, and about the journey and all the factors that have contributed to the success that Swivel is experiencing. Mr. Yusuf, thank you very much for joining us today. Over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Maria, for having me, and thanks a lot everyone for taking the time. Really great to be with you. Really great to be with you today. So kind of as Swivel, as you may know, is a mass transit startup based out of Dubai. We managed to use kind of Dubai as our hub to expand to what is now 37 cities in 16 different countries, all across Middle East, Africa, Europe, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. We're targeting to end this year in more than 50 countries, in more than 50 cities in 20 different countries, and basically by H1 next year have a complete kind of global footprint, including kind of all the way from the US to Japan, with kind of using Dubai as the hub for that global expansion. So basically, the challenge that we're trying to solve is the challenge of mass transit, right? Is effectively in kind of emerging markets and even in developed markets, the vast majority of the population is basically between kind of two options. Both of them are not ideal, right? One is a private form of transportation, whether it's owning one's own car or taking a cab or taking a ride hailing, which a lot of time is very expensive, even unaffordable for the vast majority of the population. And on the other hand, public transit, which kind of despite governments continuing to invest in it, given it's a backbone of the economy, at the end of the day, it does not satisfy all the needs, whether it's a result of in emerging markets, governments being constrained and hence not being able to necessarily kind of develop sufficient infrastructure, or kind of various issues that have to do with the reliability, with the level of extent of the public transit system, etc. While on the other hand, privately owned minivans and minibuses have always been something that kind of a very large number of mini entrepreneurs, of SMEs, own across a very large number of countries. To give you an example, Egypt has 155,000 privately owned minibuses and minivans, right? These are mostly family business, etc., which are very underutilized, inefficient. They tend to only work for a couple of trips every day, work for a school, work for a corporate, etc. And hence the idea was, how do we effectively create a platform that allows us to connect kind of that high quality supply, but that is underutilized, with effectively that demand. And we've done this effectively by creating a technology that allows us to pool on average 14 people together on a single minivan, which what allows us to do is to have the price at around 80% cheaper than one would otherwise have to pay if they're to own their own car, or effectively take a ride hailing or a cab, because of the ability to pool. And on the other hand, allow the drivers and the captains to make up to 1.5 to 2 times the earnings they would otherwise make if they're making just 2 trips a day, or they're effectively working on a ride hailing. And here the power is being able to utilize the vehicle throughout the entire day, and throughout the entire week, and throughout the entire year, and at the same time being able to pool multiple people on the same vehicle to be able to do that. And that's a function of one, demand estimation. So basically we map where all the demand pockets around the city are, then route planning, where we effectively say, okay, based on demand and where people moving to and from, what are the most efficient routes that will allow us to pool as many people as possible on the same van, without effectively people having to walk for a long time to these virtual stations, right? So how can people walk only 5 to 7 minutes to a virtual station, get on a minivan, and at the same time end up paying that much cheaper, while offering all the reliability and safety that a ride hailing would offer in terms of ride tracking, ETA, kind of driver identification, with the convenience of booking by the app, paying by cash card, having a subscription, etc. Our offering is, we do 4 different types of offering. One is retail trips. So this is trips inside the city to go from one point to another point. Any consumer via the app can book. The other offering is travel between cities. So how do we make sure that the entire country is connected to each other between all cities? Third is transport as a service. So this is a B2B business where schools, corporates, factories, universities, school centers can basically use minivans from our fleet and marketplace, which we don't own any of, right? So it's completely asset light, connecting third-party supply. How do they use kind of buses from that fleet to be able to kind of move their employees and move their students? And fourth is software as a service, where we license all the technology that we've built to run our own marketplace. We take it and we license it to governments, municipalities, transit agencies, to be able to run their own bus fleets and their own operations more efficiently as well. The power of the platform, and the reason we're able to offer the customers 80% cheaper, the drivers up to 1.5 times more earnings, and we get to up to 40% gross margins, to cross-utilize the vehicle. So the same vehicle can be doing a 7 a.m. school trip, a 9 a.m. corporate trip, a midday trip on the B2C side for people to run errands, a 2 p.m. back from school, a 5 p.m. back from corporate, an evening trip for people to go for entertainment and outings, and on the weekend can go travel from one city to another. And being able to deploy the same vehicle across the B2B, the B2C, etc., is what allows us to constantly increase the earnings of the vehicle for the captain, but continuously bring down the cost per trip for us, and hence bring down the cost per trip for the ultimate customer and increase our profitability. So all of that has allowed us to basically make sure that we constantly drop the prices for the customers, constantly increase the driver earnings, and constantly increase our own profitability, which has created a very strong competitive moat and barrier to entry around swivel. And that's why today we're the largest player in that category globally, that's offering that full end-to-end offering across the globe, and the first player in that space to be listed on any exchange. That has also fueled very strong growth to date. So the business has only started in 2017, operated for 4 years now, including 2 years of kind of more limited operations due to COVID. And notwithstanding that, we managed to scale up to $100 million of annualized revenue during the period we've operated. We're the largest in that category globally. We have competition in specific countries, Via in the US, FlixBus in Europe, Uber Bus in Egypt, Shuttle in India, etc. All of them offering in specific countries or specific offerings, whether it's a SaaS, the B2B, the B2C, etc. But no one is doing what we're doing at such a global and full product scale. The technology, like we mentioned, is basically extremely focused on how do I break each city into 1 kilometer hexes? How do I identify people going from each hex into all the other hexes in the city? And based on that, how do I effectively create a route that's most efficient, that allows the captain to start the trips from as close as possible to his home, try to almost do a full circle around the city to minimize the number of dead kilometers, and then come back as close as possible to his home at the end of the day, and hence maximize his earnings and bring prices down. Then we take all of this kind of technology, which we packaged on our kind of B2C operations, then we start offering it to institutions to also be able to either use buses from our marketplace or to even run their own bus fleets more efficiently. And hence 40% of our business today is B2B, B2G business with highly recurring revenues, 1 to 5 year contracts, and revenue retention in excess of 100%, which means kind of the vast majority of our customers are coming back and continuing to increase the contract size and the number of vehicles they have with Swivel. We've also started, in addition to our organic growth to date, we've also started to grow inorganically. So we've acquired a company called Shuttle out of Spain, which is one of the largest SaaS providers in Europe. Their biggest clients are the Barcelona City Council, the Munich Airport, among many others. They do have electric vehicles on the platform. They're participants in the European Commission Autonomous Minivan program, and will continue to grow very rapidly inorganically as well in an accretive way that will further complement our growth. The objective is to ultimately reach $1 billion of revenue by 2025, which means having 50,000 vehicles on the supply side and doing more than 2 million trips every day, effectively doing more than 500 million trips every year, and basically be able to continue to grow very, very significantly kind of year on year, while maintaining very, very strong unit economics where we can have margins in excess of 40%. In terms of our path ahead, and this was our original plan, which we've now significantly accelerated post our going through the business combination with Queen's Gambit, which we'll talk about in a second, as a result of kind of us now having access to that capital up to $445 million from the business combination with Queen's Gambit, the SPAC, as a result of us having the first kind of public currency in that space, which we can use for accretive M&A. We're bringing all of that forward, and now effectively our plan is by H1 of next year, we would have a complete global footprint where we'll be in every kind of continent around the world and in every country with kind of mega cities with kind of millions of people. And the reason we're able to do that very quickly is from a regulatory perspective, it's a very favorable landscape because we're solving a huge problem for the governments by effectively moving more and more people from loss-making public transit into kind of alternative infrastructure. It's very favorable for the drivers and the captains because they get to increase their earnings significantly. It's very favorable for the customers because of the savings they're able to make. We're also able to hire very strong talent on the ground because of the mission that people are subscribing to, right? That basically everyone, even if someone cannot afford owning their own car, they cannot afford getting a taxi or ride hailing, they're entitled to be able to get to work, to get to school in a safe, reliable, and affordable manner, regardless of their gender, regardless of their income levels. And that is the mission that basically kind of we have people all over the world subscribing to, joining Swivel and being able to launch Swivel very quickly in multiple cities and countries around the world. So that's the end of the presentation. Again, we're very proud with what we managed to do out of Dubai, being the first unicorn from the Middle East to list on Nasdaq, being the first company in that space globally to be listed on any exchange, being kind of the only company in the space to have a complete kind of true global footprint. Our ability to do this out of here in terms of kind of the access to investors, the access to talent, and the access to the entire globe, and kind of being an attractive hub for all the talent that we're hiring, and basic integration with companies all over the world. It's something we're very proud of and very fortunate and grateful for.
Thank you very much, Mr. Youssef. What a great story. Very, very inspiring, very insightful, very you've set the bar very high, and I'm sure Swivel is a great inspiration to all other businesses. Thank you for your time, and we wish you and Swivel's team the best of success in achieving the 2025 target. We have no doubt that you guys will do it. So thank you very much again for being here with us today. From the business registration and licensing sector of the Department of Economic Development, we have with us Mr. Ammar Abdul Jawad, a development executive, to give us more details on the process and procedures that businesses can follow to obtain 100% foreign ownership. Mr. Ammar will also talk to us about the Invest in Dubai platform and how Dubai economy supports the e-commerce businesses in more specifically the e-commerce businesses. So over to you, Mr. Ammar.
Thank you, Marel. I would like to first to thank FDI and KPMG for hosting us today in such event, to provide a knowledge and information about the new rules which supports the ease of doing business of the UAE and the Emirate of Dubai specifically. So first, we'd like to speak about the foreign ownership of companies. The UAE Federal Decree Law number 26 of the year 2020 significantly amends Federal Law number 2 of 2015 on commercial companies, which is the Companies Law of 2015. And the key amendments to the law include full foreign ownership of LLC companies and the exemption of national company agents for the foreign branches in the UAE. So activities like general trading, contracting, food supply, cars and truck trading can now be 100% obtained by foreigners, by foreign investors, without the need of having 51% local partners. So we have activities ranging from commercial to industrial, like also the metal and construction, flooring, building materials, food processing and packaging, water production, some pharmaceutical manufacturing as well. So we have here currently in the Emirate of Dubai more than 1,000 activity that currently can be obtained and owned by full foreign ownership. Which the investors can avail it without any extra fees or any extra requirements. Even we don't require like minimum capital for the full foreign ownership, and also no deposit required. So whatever is the capital, the named capital in the MOA, this is only a named capital. We don't request for a deposit for a certain time or any extra or hidden fees, like let's call it. Next, please. Okay. And part of the directions of the government to increase the ease of doing business of the Emirate of Dubai, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Vice President and Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates and ruler of Dubai, has launched the platform of Invest in Dubai, February 2021. And Invest in Dubai is a unified government portal that provides exceptional experience for investors, which allow them to discover the opportunities of the market, to study the options with the Dubai business map, and obtain license in seamless, customer-centric manner through one integrated platform. Currently in IID, we have more than 40 government entities connected to this platform. We have local entities and federal entities, like we have RTA, Dubai Municipality, Dubai Customs, Dubai Police from the local entities. And we have also Ministry of Human Resources and Emiratization. We have Ministry of Economy, Insurance Authority, Securities and Commodities Authorities. All these government entities are now connected to one platform that provides this exceptional experience for the investors. Next, please. So what are the main features of the Invest in Dubai platform? It's a single window that can be accessible 24/7 online, fully electronic platform. And also it's a paperless platform where the investors does not is not asked to provide any single document. It's all fully digital, connected to all the required entities, where we can, as government of Dubai and Dubai economy specifically, get all the required information and data for the investors from the connection with the other entities. And part of digitalizing the journey of the licensing, we have reviewed, and the government has reviewed all the licensing requirements, and we got direction also from His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Crown Prince of Dubai, to reduce the licensing requirements by 30% for this year only. So this is all done with this platform, and we also after the licensing, we focused on the value-added services after the licensing journey, which is one of the crucial services that we offer today is the instant bank account. We have an integration also with more than 6 banks through a blockchain platform called the UAE KYC blockchain platform, which also offers an instant bank account part of the licensing. So the investor can now get the license and avail his instant bank account in a seamless journey. And also, last but not least, in the IID, we have the instant GDRFA and Mohri cards, which are required to get the investor visa and to get the employment visa as well. Next, please. And part of the licensing that the licensing that we have on Invest in Dubai, we have a special license called DD Trader. The DD Trader, also one of the success stories that we have in Dubai economy. So in 2017, we had an internal study that showed more than 2,000 unlicensed electronic businesses in Dubai. And the Department of Economic Development, Dubai Economy, launched the DD Trader to support those businesses and to give them a legal and legal presence and a legal platform to increase and to promote their products and services. So DD Trader license provides the online businesses with legal presence and allow them to access the market and promote their products and services with discounted, supported licensing fees. At the time of launching DD Trader in 2017, we started with only 18 activities. But today, alhamdulillah, we have more than 400 activities ranging from commercial to professional activities. We have like the e-stores, handicrafts trading. We have some services like lifestyle consulting, bookkeeping, and others many. So this DD Trader license costs only 1,070 dirhams yearly, which is the minimum and the minimal fees for the freelancers and the startups, the online startups. And the UAE National currently can hire 3 employees with this license. And we also provide value-added services like the instant bank account through Invest in Dubai platform. And also we provide also some bank facilities at also discounted rates, especially for the DD traders. And we also have regular exhibitions and workshops. We used to have them physical, but post-pandemic, now we have them all electronic. So also DD traders can request to join the free exhibitions and workshops organized by Dubai Economy and our strategic partners from the private sectors. So this is what we have for today. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ammar, for sharing these useful information. The Invest in Dubai platform is a great initiative that is certainly reshaping the way business is done in the UAE. As mentioned earlier to all our audience today, we will be sharing the contact details and the relevant links with everyone right after the webinar. Moving on to the last, but definitely not least session of today, I would like to welcome my colleague Wasim Shaheen, a tax partner with KPMG Lower Gulf, to talk to us about the current tax landscape in the UAE, as well as the anticipated benefits and impact that the new 100% foreign ownership legislation is expected to have on businesses in the UAE. Wasim, over to you.
Hello, sorry for this technical problem. My name is Wasim Shaheen. I'm the tax partner of KPMG Lower Gulf. I would like to welcome the investors and potential investors who have registered to this webinar, which shows our intervention, their interest in investing in the UAE, and I hope this will help them in this regards. KPMG is fully committed to partner with all the UAE governmental and semi-governmental entities, the different ministries and departments, to help in any way possible to assist them professionally to achieve this national goal. Today, my presentation, which is a short intervention, will focus on three main topics. First of all, we'll give an insight on the tax environment in the UAE, so potential investors know how the tax environment is in the UAE. Second, we will give an overview about the current tax system here in the UAE. And the third one will give them a few points related to tax and non-tax effect on the introduction of the changes in the commercial law that occurred lately. I will start with the tax governance. The UAE really has established a framework of adherence and commitment to tax control and compliance. And in that regard, they have established a federal tax authority a couple of years back. And the Ministry of Finance is very active. Now we have a new minister, actually. There are a couple of free trade zones, almost 45 free trade zones in the UAE. And there are many authorities like Department of Finance in Dubai and Department of Finance in Abu Dhabi. There are court rulings and they try to ease the procedures. This is why they have enacted a tax procedural act in 2017, which is a well-documented procedure to help the taxpayers know exactly their rights and obligations. In the UAE, they are keen on being compliant with the international community, and this is why they have signed a lot of international agreements, and they are abiding by the international tax standards. Actually, the UAE has signed almost 130 double taxation treaties with countries, and they have entered into the GAFTA, the Greater Arab Free Trade Agreement. They have entered into the GCC Economic Agreement, and they are definitely a member of the Gulf Cooperation Council for the VAT that was implemented in the Gulf in the past 3 years. The UAE has also been a very active member of the OECD, and they have enacted recently the base erosion and profit shifting, the BEPS, and they are very active on that, and they are compliant. They have also enacted an economic substance regulation, ESR, and they have definitely, as we will explain later on, did a lot of work on the common reporting standards and the country-by-country reporting for multinational groups. The UAE is really committed in a meaningful contributor to the environment, social, and governance. They are very active in this regards. Then we move to the defined tax regime in the UAE. Very well known that in UAE there are around 45 free tax zones, and these free zones, the investors enjoy zero taxation, and they can be 100% owned by foreigners. And recently there has been an attempt by the UAE government, and in particular in Dubai, to have an integrated economic zone authority, which will englobe Dubai Airport Free Zone, Dubai Silicon Oasis, and Dubai commerce city, and this will create an authority that will generate around 5% of the GDP of Dubai. Now, in terms of free zone also, there is a big attempt now to allow cryptocurrency trading, so that's an interesting topic. In terms of corporate income tax in the UAE, as we know, there is no corporate income tax at the federal level. Some attempts were done in the past for the states, Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Actually, there are, as you know, taxes levied on branches of foreign banks, around 20%. And there are some taxes levied, corporate income tax levied on oil and gas companies on concessions, which is up to 55%. As for customs and excise, the range goes between 0% and 5%. Really, this excise duty was introduced also in 2017. They have put some excise tax on carbonated drinks, energy drinks, and tobacco. Now they are trying also to ease the customs on personal goods. There is a new platform that has been enacted last month, and it's very useful for e-commerce. Other tax duties, just to make a small note for those investors interested in knowing whether there is a payroll tax in the UAE, and the answer is no. There is no stamp duty tax as well. There is no personal tax, and there is no professional duty as well. The rate also that is introduced on the transfer of properties in the UAE is around 4%. Sometimes it can be reduced in specific cases, sometimes to 2%. There is also no dividend tax once there is a decision to distribute or repatriate dividends. There is no dividend tax in the UAE. Also, there is no stamp duty tax. This is a tax that is levied on some contracts, etc. This is not present in the UAE. Then it's also worth noting that the UAE has entered into the VAT framework. It was a UAE member of the agreement between the GCC, and the rate applied was 5%, and the minimum was $51,000, around $51,000 to have an optional registration, and the mandatory registration was around $102,000. The standard rate that was applied in the UAE was 5% on most of the goods and services. Some goods and services are zero rated. And here by zero rated, we mean that the trader do not charge VAT, but it can recover the input VAT paid on its expenses and fixed assets. And an example of these zero rated services are like international transport, etc. Also, there are some goods and services that are exempt. Exempt meaning that they don't charge VAT to their customers, but they cannot recover the input VAT charged on their expenses and fixed assets. So that's about the VAT. We move to the withholding taxes. This is a very interesting topic for investors because a lot of charges come from outside the country, and they want to know from the head office also. They want to know whether there is a withholding tax on that. Then, as per the current enacted laws in the UAE, there is no tax on withholding tax on franchise fees, no withholding tax on interest paid to a foreign entity. There is no withholding tax on royalties paid to a foreign entity, and there is no dividend tax paid to the head office or the mother company. And there is no withholding tax on any form of payment to a foreign entity. The UAE has, after the FATCA, the very well known the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act in the States. They were very active in entering what we call the Common Reporting Standards world, and now the UAE is fully in compliance with the Common Reporting Standards, and this has been in place since 2017. Now, lately, the UAE has implemented the ESR, and this is very important. And they are very active in complying with the what we call the environment and social regulations. Now, with respect to the new federal law, as Ammar said before, there are many changes in the commercial law. I will not repeat what Ammar already said, but I will highlight a couple of points which are really interesting for investors to focus on. The 13 points that I highlighted, some of them Ammar mentioned, so the 100% foreign ownership, that's fine. No need for national service agents, also Ammar mentioned that. Majority of the board may now be foreign and no UAE nationals are required. That's an interesting point for foreigners. Commercial and industrial activity is now permitted by foreign nationals. The quorum of the General Assembly in respect of the LLC is reduced to 50%. It's now an obligation to insert a dispute resolution clause in the memorandum of Article of Association. The possibility to enforce and increase capital by way of court decision by investors. There's now no limit in respect of the number of shareholders of the publicly joint stock company. The possibility to subscribe up to 70% of the issued shares in an IPO. There are no additional fees, as Ammar mentioned, no requested guarantees, no minimum capital, and in some cases, banking and insurance can now be performed via other legal entities. Now, what are the considerations really that an investor should take into account when they do convert from 49 to 100%? First of all, this is not obligatory, so they can leave companies as they are. But if they want to change, they can change that. From tax perspective, there is nothing to be worried about. Even the VAT is not a big consideration, especially if the new entity will be registered in the VAT. So really the tax is minimal. The impact of tax is minimal on converting the 49 to 100%. We will explain later on the two possible scenarios for converting. But here there are some group rationalization that should be done. They should consider really whether to keep the number of companies in the groups or to reduce them. Also, there is a consideration for the branches to be converted to a full 100% owned LLC. That's a very interesting point in terms of liability for the head offices. There will be no problems regarding customs. I mean, when the companies will be fully 100% owned, there will be no problem regarding the customs and the exemptions as before. The change in the 49% definitely to 100% will necessitate that the shareholders will sit together and see how they can value the shares transferred from one person to another. That might result in a valuation exercise, and this valuation exercise can be done by amicably internally, or can be done by an external party in that regard. Now, the final point about the tax consideration, in terms of VAT, we should know that they can transfer the shares between shareholders, the old and new, and here there is no tax, no VAT on this transaction. In case they decided to transfer the assets between one entity to another, then the new entity has to be registered with the VAT first, and then there will be no VAT charged by the old entity to the new entity, and this is what we call the going concern principal, and the new VAT can recover the VAT. So usually there will be no effect on the new entity in this regard. I hope that really it was beneficial. This concludes our short intervention. And back to you, Maria.
Thank you very much, Wasim, and I would like to thank all our participants in today's session. Very useful sessions indeed, very useful insight, very informative. And I would like to thank all our audience for participating and for attending. And maybe I would hand over to Mr. Fahad for the last couple of points of comments.
Thank you, Marielle. First of all, I would like to thank Yusuf, Ghaith, Ammar, Wasim. Thank you all for coming and participating with us today. I really want to thank our guests for taking the time to join us. It is very important to us that we conduct such workshops so we know what we're doing and investors can actually understand what's happening here in Dubai. Again, I want to invite you to come and participate with us at Expo 2020. It's a 6 months event. Please find the time to come and visit us. We'll be more than happy. And if you do so, please drop us an email and we'll be happy to meet with you and take you around and show you our city. So we'll send you a survey email shortly. Give us your feedback. It is important for us to hear from you. I thank you again and I wish you all a very good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Fahad. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.